When you've got a lake that has really dense, heavy weeds that have come to the surface, or cabbage is poking up at the surface, it's really hard to get a lot of crankbaits through that, and it might take you a long time to work a soft plastic through it. So you kind of need to, you can always turn around once you find them and slow down and throw plastics on them. But one of the best search baits there are, by far, is a spinnerbait. Spinnerbaits come in a whole variety of colors, skirts, sizes, different blade patterns. This is just a sampling of what they could be. Typically, you want to match the forage color. So if the lake has got a lot of crappies in it, you might want to use one that's got black and gold and some red. Normally, the larger the blade and the larger the bait, it's going to give off more vibration. You're going to have a better chance of catching, isolating larger fish. The basic concept most widely retrieved for a spinnerbait is merely to cast it out and retrieve it straight back through the weeds, over rock piles, over logs, mostly moving it a little bit quicker, trying to just get it through the cover. You can cast it out, engage the reel, you can see the blades, catch a fish on the first cast. Oh! Spinners, see, nothing to it. That's one way. You can just pitch it like a jig and they'll just apparently eat it. They'll eat it when it lands. There's another way to work spinnerbaits as well. When you're looking at a lot of vegetation like this and there's definite pockets and it's a bit clumpy, one of the things you can do, you can pitch it out like you normally would, and then you start retrieving it. But when you get into a spot where there's a hole, you can actually pause the bait and let it flutter down. Helicoptering is what it's called. And then you can rip the bait up to clear it from the weeds and then kind of retrieve it again. So that allows you to actually quickly fish the pockets and then kind of get up over the tops of the weeds, helicopter it down. And a lot of times, just like how that bass ate this lure right as it was landing, that same thing will happen when you're retrieving. You come up over the weeds and you helicopter it down. They're going to eat that when it's falling down. One of the key things when working spinnerbaits is I want to basically go. My normal cadence that I'm going to rely on day in and day out is a retrieve that isn't too fast, it's not too slow, it's the Goldilocks retrieve, right? I mean, it's just right. And how I can tell that is I want the blades to be spinning, and you can feel that. You can feel the thumping of the blades when they're working, and if you're using good polarized glasses, you can see that blade right at the surface. I want to go just fast enough so those blades are definitely spinning, but falling as far into the water column, down into the weeds, as it'll go without me catching the weeds. I find that I catch more fish at that sweet spot speed on any given day. Some days you have to move it quicker, some days you have to grind it really slow, but for the most part, that's the speed that you kind of want to try and work towards. But the other reason I like to do that and not necessarily grind it so low to the bottom, one, I'm not going to be ripping through the weeds as much. I'm going to make more efficient casts. I get to cover all that water all the way in. But two, when I do get strikes, it's a lot easier for me to remember and visually track what speed it was coming in and where in the water it was. If it was really bright and at the surface, it was down at the bottom of how deep I could see. It really kind of helps me figure that out, and the more I can repeat that on that given day, it can get to the point where you can catch a fish on consistent casts when you find a good pot of them. The great thing about spinners too is you can use either bait casting equipment or spinning gear. I prefer bait casting equipment, and Lindsay prefers the spinning gear setups.
Spinners were the first thing I learned how to cast. And they're also the first thing I caught a lot of bass on, so I enjoy spinnerbaits. Kind of the bait that I can use and be confident while fishing with. It's hard to screw it up, which I like.
That's a good one. Spinners, summertime, hard to beat for bass. All the spinners we're using today, just go to Thorne Brothers in Blaine, Minnesota. They've got the full assortment. War Eagles, Flaming Toms. If you're not in Minnesota, The whole assortment is on thornbrothers.com.